in the early hours of the 13th of June, 1944, as the Normandy hedgerows still glistened with overnight dew, the engines of the first German Panther tanks began to rumble. The sky above the French countryside hung pale and silent, the kind of calm that soldiers had learned never to trust. On a narrow country lane near the small village of Villers-Bocage, the war seemed to pause for a fleeting moment. British tanks crept cautiously forward, unaware that enemy armour already lay in wait nearby. Hidden somewhere behind the thick hedgerows was a lone British Sherman Firefly. And in the next few minutes, this solitary tank would accomplish something few believed possible. By this stage of the war, the German Panther had earned a fearsome reputation across the battlefield. Its thick, sloped armour and powerful high-velocity 75mm gun enabled it to destroy Allied tanks at long range. British and American crews knew this threat all too well. The standard Sherman struggled against Panthers and Tigers alike. Its gun often failed to penetrate German armour unless fired from very close range or at a near-perfect angle. Many Allied tank crews had already learned through bitter experience that a head-on encounter with a Panther could mean instant annihilation. German tankers believed the same. In Normandy, many of them felt confident. Their Panthers dominated open terrain, their guns were accurate, their armour formidable, and they usually held the upper hand against ordinary Shermans. But that June morning was about to unfold differently. Just a week earlier, on the 6th of June, 1944, Allied forces had landed on the beaches of Normandy in the largest amphibious operation in history. British, American, and Canadian troops were pushing inland from Gold Beach, Juno Beach, and Omaha Beach. By the second week of June, the fighting had shifted from the coast into the dense, compartmentalized countryside of northern France. From the air, the land appeared peaceful, but for tank crews, it was a nightmare. Fields were small, roads narrow, and thick hedgerows divided each parcel of land like walls. These were no mere bushes. For centuries, farmers had built them from layers of earth, stone, and tangled roots. Many stood over 2 meters high and were strong enough to stop a tank in its tracks. From inside their vehicles, crews could see little beyond the next field. Every turn in the road felt like a step into the unknown. Infantry could hide in the undergrowth, anti-tank guns might lurk behind embankments, and enemy tanks could appear suddenly at point-blank range. Concealed within one such hedgerow sat a Sherman Firefly belonging to the British 4th County of London Yeomanry. The Firefly looked almost identical to a standard Sherman, but with one crucial difference. Instead of the usual American 75mm gun, it mounted the powerful British 17-pounder anti-tank weapon, specifically designed to defeat heavy German armour. Its long, slender barrel was deadly accurate. Commanding the tank was Sergeant Gordon Hill. Like many tank commanders in Normandy, Hill had seen enough combat to know how quickly things could go wrong. Inside the turret with him were 4 other crew members. The gunner, Trooper Joe Eakins, was responsible for aiming the massive 17-pounder. Beside him, the loader stood ready to ram armor-piercing rounds into the breech. Up front, the driver and co-driver listened intently to the engine and radio, watching the narrow road ahead. For now, the tank remained hidden behind the hedgerow. The crew could hear the distant roar of engines echoing across the fields. German armour was moving nearby. Just hours earlier, British forces had entered Villers-Bocage as part of an attempt to break through German defences. The manoeuvre had caught some German units off guard, but experienced commanders reacted swiftly. Among them was one of the war's most renowned tank aces, SS Hauptsturmführer Michael Wittmann of the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion. Wittmann was already a legend in German armoured circles, having destroyed dozens of enemy vehicles while commanding Tigers on the Eastern Front. His reputation was built on aggressive assaults and pinpoint gunnery. That morning, Wittmann saw an opportunity. British armoured columns were strung out along the road near Villers-Bocage, some stationary, others moving slowly. The situation looked vulnerable. Without waiting for a fully coordinated attack, Wittmann ordered his Tiger forward. What followed became one of the most famous tank engagements of the war. As Wittmann's Tiger rolled into Villers-Bocage, it opened fire at close range. British tanks and armoured vehicles were caught completely by surprise. Within minutes, several Shermans and half-tracks burned along the roadside. The Tiger's powerful 88mm gun tore through one vehicle after another. British crews scrambled for cover as German gunners fired with lethal efficiency. For the soldiers on that road, it was chaos. Radio nets crackled with desperate voices. Officers struggled to make sense of the unfolding disaster. Some crews abandoned their stricken vehicles and sought shelter among the village buildings, others frantically tried to turn their tanks on the narrow streets to face an unseen foe. Thick smoke rose slowly over the town, marking the explosions of ammunition inside destroyed armor. Yet the battle was far from over. While Whitman's Tiger wreaked havoc in the village, Panther tanks from the elite Panzer-led division were rapidly approaching the area. These were among Germany's newest and most powerful fighting machines, designed specifically to counter Allied armored advances. Their crews expected to face standard American Shermans and assumed the engagement would be predictable, even routine. They had no idea they were about to meet the dreaded Firefly. Sergeant Gordon Hill and his crew, concealed deep within the hedgerow, listened tensely as the roar of approaching engines grew louder. Hill cautiously raised his binoculars above the hedgerow, careful not to reveal his position. Through a narrow gap, he spotted movement on the road cutting across an open field, 5 Panthers advancing in column, their engines roaring as they rolled forward. Their dark silhouettes slid confidently between the hedgerows, unaware of the danger that awaited them. Hill lowered his binoculars and issued the order, "Prepare to engage." Inside the turret, Trooper Joe Eakins carefully aligned the 17-pounder. The long barrel pointed through a small opening in the hedgerow. With a sharp metallic click, the loader inserted an armor-piercing round into the breech. The crew moved with calm precision, but each man knew their survival hung in the balance. If the Panthers spotted them first, the fight would end instantly and fatally. The Firefly remained perfectly still, blending into the landscape. Seconds stretched into an agonizing wait. Then, the lead Panther appeared. Through his sight, Eakins clearly saw the familiar silhouette, the thick frontal armor and long gun barrel unmistakable. The German tank rolled slowly down the road, completely unaware it had entered a perfect kill zone. Hill gave the order, "Fire!" The 17-pounder roared, shaking the air. The entire Firefly recoiled violently as the round screamed across the field at tremendous velocity. It struck the Panther's side armor with devastating force. A bright flash erupted at the point of impact, followed instantly by thick smoke. Inside the German tank, the round tore through the fighting compartment, sowing destruction. The Panther ground to a halt. For a moment, the remaining German crews hesitated in confusion. They hadn't expected fire from that direction. Before they could react, Hill barked another command, "Reload!" The loader slammed another round into the breech with remarkable speed. Eakins made a slight adjustment. "Fire!" The second shot struck the next Panther. Again, the 17-pounder punched clean through the armor. Flames erupted as the tank's ammunition cooked off. 2 Panthers were destroyed in seconds. The German column now realized it was under concentrated attack. 1 Panther began swinging its turret, searching for the hidden British tank. Another tried to veer off the road for cover, but the dense hedgerow severely limited maneuverability. Inside the Firefly, the crew worked with focused intensity, their movements honed by countless drills. "Reload!" "Fire!" The third round hit another Panther. The impact jolted the German tank, and smoke billowed from its engine compartment as internal damage spread. 3 Panthers were now out of action. Panic set in among the German crews. Trapped on the narrow road between impenetrable hedgerows, they couldn't locate the enemy's firing position. Recognizing his advantage, Hill ordered another adjustment. "Reload!" "Fire!" Minutes later, the 4th Panther was hit. The round pierced the turret ring, one of the tank's most vulnerable points. Fire and thick smoke poured from the wreck. 4 Panthers destroyed. Only 1 remained. The last Panther desperately reversed down the road, its engine roaring as the driver struggled to maneuver the heavy vehicle away from the invisible attacker. Inside the Firefly, the loader fed another round into the breech. Eakins took careful aim. Fire! The final shot struck before the Panther could escape. The round penetrated the armor and detonated inside the fighting compartment. The tank shuddered and fell still. 5 Panthers lay destroyed. Silence returned to the field, broken only by the crackling of flames. Black smoke drifted slowly over the hedgerows, carrying the acrid stench of burning fuel into the quiet Normandy sky. Somewhere beyond the fields, the distant echoes of battle continued. Inside the Firefly, the British crew finally allowed themselves to breathe. The entire engagement had lasted only minutes, but its legacy would endure for decades. For a short time after the firing ceased, the crew remained inside their tank, vigilant. In Normandy, victory in one moment offered no guarantee of safety in the next. Other German units were still nearby, and the battlefield could shift in an instant. Sergeant Hill ordered the driver to hold position while he scanned the surrounding fields through his binoculars. The burning hulks of the Panthers formed a grim line of black smoke along the road, a stark testament to the ambush. Joe Eakins, the quiet gunner who had delivered those precise shots, later recalled the moment with remarkable composure. To him, it had simply been a job: spot the target, aim carefully, fire quickly. Yet the results were extraordinary. The Firefly had powerfully demonstrated why the 17-pounder struck such fear into German tank crews. Unlike the standard Sherman gun, it could penetrate Panther armor even at significant ranges. In skilled hands, it transformed the Firefly into one of the Allies' most dangerous tanks in the theater. The Firefly itself was born of hard lessons learned early in the war. British engineers had realized the standard Sherman's gun was inadequate against new German armor. By fitting the powerful 17-pounder into the Sherman turret, they created a tank finally capable of matching Panthers and Tigers. The modification required major internal changes, including relocating the radio and redesigning parts of the gun mount, but the result justified every effort. In the weeks following D-Day, British armored units increasingly relied on the Firefly to counter heavy German tanks. Typically, each Sherman troop included just one Firefly among several standard tanks. The Firefly would hang slightly back, patiently waiting for a Panther or Tiger to appear. When it did, the Firefly would move forward and deliver the blow that ordinary Shermans couldn't. German crews soon learned to fear the Firefly's long-barreled 17-pounder. Many Panthers would prioritize it as a target the moment it was spotted. Some crews even tried to identify Fireflies by their longer guns and distinctive turret profiles. The fighting around Villers-Bocage that day unfolded amid chaos and fierce combat. Whitman's Tiger was eventually disabled in the village after a heavy exchange with British forces. German and British units clashed throughout the countryside as both sides fought for control of the area. By midday, the battlefield around the town was littered with destroyed vehicles, damaged buildings, and scattered equipment. Infantry advanced cautiously through the streets while tank crews hunted for enemy survivors hiding among the hedgerows. The Battle of Villers-Bocage was no easy victory for either side. Yet the destruction of 5 Panthers by a single Firefly remained one of the day's most remarkable episodes. It also revealed something essential about armored warfare in Normandy: technological superiority alone did not guarantee victory. Terrain, positioning, and crew training mattered just as much. And sometimes, a single well-placed tank could alter the entire course of a battle. The Normandy hedgerows turned every field into a tangled labyrinth. Long-range tank duels were rare. Combat often erupted suddenly at close quarters, leaving mere seconds to react. In such conditions, the crew that spotted the enemy first usually prevailed. Sergeant Hill's crew expertly exploited the terrain. Concealed behind a hedgerow and waiting patiently, they lured German Panthers into a narrow kill zone where their superior armor offered little advantage. The Panthers were formidable machines, but they were not invincible. Across Normandy in the weeks that followed, both sides learned painful lessons about armored warfare in this challenging landscape. German tanks faced relentless Allied air strikes and dwindling fuel supplies. Allied tanks, in turn, contended with deadly German anti-tank guns and highly trained crews. Yet moments like the Firefly ambush reminded soldiers on both sides how quickly confidence could evaporate in combat. For the Panther crews who believed their tanks ruled the battlefield unchallenged, that morning near Villers-Bocage proved a harsh and unexpected shock. For the British crew inside that Sherman Firefly, it became a story destined to endure long after the war ended. Even today, historians continue to study this pivotal engagement, not because it was the largest battle of the war, but quite the opposite. It stands out as a vivid example of how skillful tactics, patience, and strategic positioning can overcome even the most fearsome war machines on the battlefield. If you visit these Normandy fields today, you'll find an idyllic scene, peaceful farmland where hedgerows still stand, roads remain narrow, and farms nestle quietly amidst greenery. But in June 1944, those same fields echoed with the deafening roar of engines and the thunder of tank guns. And somewhere among those hedgerows, a lone Sherman Firefly waited in silence, poised for the decisive moment that would shift the tide of battle in just a few fleeting seconds.